Talk about crime, shall we? A lot of people seeing what happened in New York City with the cops assaulted by illegal aliens, migrants, illegal aliens in the city of New York, and released very rapidly thereafter, not held for any length of time. Gavin Newsom out in California also coming under some heat. And actually, you know what? I want to start with Newsom, and then we'll bring things home to New York City. I still think of it as home, even though I live in Florida. We'll bring things to New York. So Newsom was doing a Zoom forum. This is such a Gavin Newsom thing, having to do with mental health. This was first reported in the Mercury News, and the footage is online. It's a Zoom, public Zoom session, I guess. And Newsom was talking about how he was in a Target, which I will say, does your wife like Target?
She
Costco
does.
is superior to Target for Carrie, but I think Target is still pretty high on the list of places that's fun to shop. Gavin Newsom's in a Target. People, this in California, obviously, people are just walking out, stealing stuff, and the clerks aren't doing anything. This is Gavin Newsom telling the story, and he gets upset at the clerk, and you need to hear what the clerk says. Play the clip.
Says, sir, you dropped this. And he comes back, picks it up, and keeps walking out. As we're checking out, the woman says, oh, he's just walking out. He didn't pay for that. I said, well, why didn't you stop him? She goes, oh, the governor. I swear to God, true story. On my mom's grave. The governor lowered the threshold. There's no accountability. I said, that's just not true. And I said, we have the 10th toughest, $950, the 10th toughest in America. She doesn't even know what I was talking about. By the way, it's the 10th toughest in America. Look it up. No one gives a damn about that. And I said, it's just not true. There's still stop. They said, well, we don't stop them because of the governor. And then she looks at me twice, and then she freaks out. She calls everyone over, wants to take photos. I'm like, no, I'm not taking a photo. We're having a conversation. Where's your manager? How are you blaming the governor? And it was, $380 later. And I was like, why am I spending $380? Everyone can walk the hell right out.
Okay. What is Gavin Newsom missing here? This is the part that it's amazing. So a clerk, and he's the one telling the story. You heard this. And he says he swore in his mother's grave, which for Gavin Newsom, I mean, does that mean he's telling the truth? Who knows? But he's telling the story, trying to make it seem like people have this crazy idea. He's walking out with $380 that he's paying for, he says. Somebody else is walking out. People are walking out with arms full of stuff. He's going, why am I paying for the $380? And he doesn't seem to connect the situation here, Clay, to $950 is what you can steal up to without arrest. So Gavin Newsom, by his own state's laws, could walk out with the $380 that he has in his arms, not be arrested, and he's wondering why the clerk isn't doing more? What does he expect the clerk to do? It's like, I don't know what to say. He's like the guy that, drops a carton of milk. It splatters everywhere on the kitchen floor, and he's like, who splattered the milk? What is he doing?
It's hard to spend $950 at Target or at a grocery store or a Costco even, unless you are buying something big, a computer, a television, something that would cost a large amount by itself. And all of you out there that are contemplating this in your own experiences shopping, I bet most of you have never spent $950 at a Target or at a grocery store ever. And again, if you have, it's because you were buying a big television or you were buying a laptop back in the day. You can fill an entire Target shopping cart to the brim and not come anywhere near $950. And the fact that you have basically created this world where there are no consequences. And look, again, it goes to incentive structure. The people that are committing these robberies know exactly what they can get away with without any consequences.
But also, what does he want? Gavin Newsom is outraged at the clerk for living in the reality that libs like Gavin Newsom have created in California. You have to talk. California in the 90s was like paradise, man. I grew up in New York and I loved it, but in the back of my mind, I was always, oh man, could you imagine if I could have grown up in Santa Monica or in Orange County? and they're ruining what is one of the great states in the world, one of the great places to live in the world, with stupid policies. How does he? You know what I'm saying about the disconnect? Like, he wants her to do what? She doesn't
No
know.
kidding. She's making $15 an hour, Buck. And what have we seen when clerks have actually tried to stop robberies? They either lose their jobs or they get charged with crimes.
Yes.
And I don't know who the people are that are committing all of these robberies, but he's talking about a woman at a clerk checkout. Let's say that she makes $15 an hour, $17 an hour, whatever it is. What percentage of women are able to stop anybody from stealing anything, right? I'm assuming a lot of these people are adult males. So the idea that you're going to put some woman making $15 or $17 on the line of fire, to me, when I hear that story from Gavin Newsom, what it reflects is how broken his understanding is of the incentive culture that he has created to commit these robberies, but also the fact that he's blaming a clerk for not stopping it from happening. You could, in theory, solve this really rapidly. Buck, you know what Walmart does? And it's been very historically successful for them nationwide. If they find that you stole from their store, they will prosecute you to the full extent of the law. Most jurisdictions, even if it's $50, and it costs them a lot more money than the $50 would. Yes. But they want to send the message that there are consequences. That's the way they handle shoplifting in Walmarts. I don't know what they do in California now, but in most of their jurisdictions, they're going to throw the book at you because they believe that all of the people who steal have conversations and they say, hey, if you steal from Walmart, they will come after you. I guarantee you all these people are saying, you just walk into Target, take whatever out. They won't do anything to you. And unfortunately, what that leads to is what, Buck? These stores eventually shut down because they don't have very high of a profit margin. All the people lose their jobs inside there. Everybody who wants to shop in the neighborhood and actually pay for things doesn't have the ability to walk
Yeah, and
or
property
easily
values
get somewhere.
decline, and
The
crime
entire
rises,
community
and
collapses.
it all spirals. But for anyone who wants, because this is the big thing, Democrats like to pretend it's not about our policies or it's not just in our states. So CNN's chief law enforcement analyst, guy used to run the intelligence division of the NYPD, where not when I was there, but the same place where I worked at one point. And here he is on CNN. They're talking. We want to get to the migrant crime thing too. There's even more about this in this hour because this is adding to the stress on the Democrat party right now, the panic that the Biden regime is in because of this. But first off, there is a difference between how they handle things in California and how they handle things in Texas when it comes to crime, when it comes to theft. There is a difference in how they handle things in New York and how they handle things in, say, Florida, where I live. And I've been in both places. I live right next to a grocery store here in Florida. Nothing is under lock and key.
Yep.
Nothing is under lock and key. The drugstore on my corner when I lived in Midtown Manhattan, you couldn't buy anything of value without getting a clerk to kind of, walk over, and everyone knows it's ridiculous and it's so frustrating, and you got to sit there and, I've actually got to get another thing, and the clerk has to walk over with a key, and and there's 7 people waiting and they're all annoyed, and this is just life in Manhattan now. Here's why that's the case. The migrant gangs are stealing. There are migrant gangs now, everybody, illegal alien gangs that are committing crimes. Why aren't they being deported right away? And they go from New York, where they steal, to Florida, where they spend. Listen to this on CNN when they explain why that is.
There is this 1%er, criminal element that looks at a different opportunity here. These individuals, I went over their rap sheets yesterday, multiple charges, grand larceny, robbery, attempted robbery, grand larceny. This particular crew operated on mopeds and scooters. They were doing organized retail theft. They were doing snatches on the street. iPhones, iPads, clothing, so on and so forth. One of them that they are still seeking has 10 charges on one day because he's part of a pattern that's been going on. And I'm looking at the dates that their arrest started, which is probably close to when they got here. They've only been here a couple of months. So what the detectives are telling me is they have crews here that operate in New York, do all their stealing, then go to Florida to spend the money and then come back. And I'm like, well, why don't they just stay and steal in Florida? And they said, because there you go to jail.
Oh. Great reporting. Keep us posted on this.
You hear that?
Yeah.
These are organized theft crews of illegals, by the way, who do all their stealing in New York and then do all their spending, not stealing, in Florida because they don't want to do stealing in Florida because their people actually go to prison for stealing stuff.
Incentive structure matters. And to me, this all ties in with a huge percentage of Democrats. We were out to dinner last night having a conversation about this. A huge percentage of Democrats are not only anti capitalism, they don't understand basic profit. And the reality is, for any of you out there that have ever worked in retail, and I've worked in retail lots of different places, the profit margin on retail is super small. And so it doesn't take very much theft to turn a profitable business into a business that falls completely apart. Buck, 10%, let's say, of the overall revenue in many different retail establishments is actually profit. You know what they call it? Black Monday is because a lot of retail establishments don't actually start to make money until right after the Christmas holiday, right? Or right around the time we get to Thanksgiving. They work all year to try to be able to make a tiny profit. The profit margin in a grocery store is often 4 or 5%. I mean, we're talking about, if you spend, for people out there who don't understand basic business, if you spend $1, the actual profit that a grocery store gets might be 5 cents on that dollar, might be 4 cents on that dollar. It doesn't take very much thievery for Target or a grocery store or a
And
Walmart or a CVS or a Walgreens to fall from being able to make money and employ people to actually being a drag on corporate earnings.
did you see what happened with the shutdown of, I think it was it In-N-Out Burger or
Yeah, In-N-Out Burger said they can't be open in Oakland
Oakland?
anymore because it wasn't safe to be able to run their
And
business.
you see what people in Oakland, like city council or whatever, are saying about it. Well, that's racist.
Yeah,
And you sit there, you say, what? It has nothing to do with racism. It has nothing to do with race of anyone. It just has to do with, we can't operate here because it is too dangerous, because there's too much crime and we're being robbed and our patrons are being robbed. And instead, but just think about this immediate knee-jerk reaction you get from Democrats all over the country when these things happen. When a Dwayne Reed or a CVS or a Walgreens, right, different depending where you are in the country, the drugstore chain, right, when your local drugstore chain shuts down, in so many of these Democrat-run cities, instead of them saying, wow, how do we got to turn this around, we got to make things safe, they go, what about the community? Why are you being racist, Walgreens? And first of all, it's interesting that they go to race right away, because
yeah,
no one's
right.
even talking about race. They're just saying there's too much crime going on, we can't handle it in this neighborhood. So they won't deal with the actual problems. Instead, they deflect, and that just means that things get worse in the bad neighborhoods, in the high crime neighborhoods, the high poverty, high crime neighborhoods of major Democrat controlled cities.
There aren't jobs. There aren't the ability to be able to go out and buy things easily. It requires way more effort. You have to get on a bus. You have to get on public transportation to be able to get to a store. And you know where all the investment then goes? Suburbs, places with low crime environments where they open increasingly new places to be able to go shop. I mean, this is San Francisco writ large, Buck. The number of businesses that are collapsing and shutting down retail wise in San Francisco is off the charts. And many of those businesses are just relocating to safer, lower crime neighborhoods where the profit margins are better. And that's basic business. And the lack of understanding from so many Democrats about how the impact of this is. I mean, to me, it's perfectly illustrated by Gavin Newsom standing there getting angry at the clerk inside of the Target for the mass thievery that's going on directly in front of him, instead of saying, wait a minute, why don't we have police officers deployed to this Target to arrest everybody? And hey, by the way, how about we lower the amount of dollars that you can steal to 50 or $100 and we prosecute these people to the fullest extent of the law? Guess what would happen? The thievery would drop massively if they just lowered the amount that you could get away with stealing. That's the solution. It's simple, it's easy. The fact that these people aren't willing to do it is a function that they don't really care about it. And as a result, their overall business culture is being destroyed.